Greetings, and welcome to the All Facts Matter podcast, where we push back against corporate media propaganda with facts, evidence, and data. I'm Peter, the author of All Facts Matter. Let's begin. Well, with the holiday shopping season beginning in earnest right now, and we're almost to the end of November, it's a natural question to wonder how much are prices going to be going up? How much inflation are we looking at this time? Uh, Trying to figure out how we're going to be doing our Christmas shopping. How much Christmas shopping are we going to be able to afford? Well, inflation is going to factor into that. We know that consumer price inflation has been heating up of late, and so the question is kind of natural at this point. Are we going to see more of that, or maybe we get a little bit of deflation and maybe catch a break here for Christmas? That would be nice. And while that would be nice, that's probably not exactly what's going to happen. What we're going to see is kind of what we have seen in most months, where we're going to see some price elements are going to be going up. We're going to be seeing increasing inflation in some of those, and we're going to be seeing price deflation in others. And the net effect of all of these taken together is what's going to yield the singular consumer price index number that the corporate media is going to say, oh, look, inflation's going up and inflation's going down. Well, yeah, that means that these prices are going up and these other prices are going down. It's the net effect, and that's what's really happening. Which, that dissection of the different pricing elements, the corporate media does an absolutely horrible, craptacular job of explaining. And so, as we consider what might actually be the case for inflation in November, let's take a look at how the various elements come together to give us inflation or deflation in these different categories. So let's take a look at what the data has to say. Now, I'm going to begin this with the inflation nowcast that is maintained by the Cleveland Federal Reserve. A nowcast is essentially a running estimate of what's happening right now. It's a forecast of what's taking place right now. The Cleveland Fed updates this model every day, and as it does, it then extrapolates to the end of the month. This is, well, given this data that we have fed into our model, this is what the consumer price index is going to be doing, and this is how much inflation we're going to be seeing at the end of the month. So what the nowcast is projecting for November is that our headline inflation, which is the overall consumer price index number, headline inflation is going to be about 2.7%. The consumer price index is going to go up about 2.7% from where it was this time last year. Core inflation, which is that same pricing data but with food and energy prices stripped out of it. Food and energy prices tend to be a little bit more volatile, and so economists like to look at the consumer prices without those two items in there because their volatility can mask important trends otherwise. Core inflation is going to be about 3.3%. It's going to be higher, as it has been throughout the year when we're looking at the year-on-year figures. And so while core inflation has been largely horizontal, largely consistent, it's about 3.2, 3.3%, for months now, going all the way back to about July. We're starting to see a warming trend in year-on-year inflation for September, October, and now November. So we're definitely seeing inflation is going to keep heating up. It's not heating up dramatically, but it is definitely on the rise. And these, of course, are the URLs for the nowcast information and for the rest of this historical data. Links for all of these are in the description on the website. So when we look at the month-on-month numbers, we see things a little bit differently. We're still seeing the headline rates heating up, pretty much the same as they are in the year-on-year figures. But it does look like the core inflation, we're getting a little bit more of a disinflationary trend, get a little bit more of a respite. Core inflation rate is going to be 0.27%, which is little bit lower than what it was in October, which is when it came in about 0.28%. Um, and so when we look at the historical data, we're seeing headline inflation is heating up, but core inflation is actually cooling off a little bit. So how much of that we're likely to see going forward, it's something we definitely want to pay attention to. Now, one of the key components in headline inflation is energy prices. And energy prices, of course, all the different forms of energy, oil, gas, gasoline, what have you, all feed into the energy price, consumer price subindex, and that's how we generate an inflation metric for energy prices. Now, the two common benchmarks for crude oil in the world markets are Brent crude, which is what's pumped out of the North Sea, basically, and then West Texas Intermediate, which is the domestic oil production. And at the beginning of the month, it looked like we were going to be seeing some energy price inflation coming off of these oil prices. Then there was a reversal, and they dropped back down, and we're in the doldrums. This is all below where the oil prices opened for the month. Last week they were trending up again, and it looked like we were actually going to break up above the opening contract price for oil for these benchmark oil prices. And then at the beginning of the week, it reversed again and made its way significantly down. And so now we're looking at a significant decrease in crude oil prices. From this, we can basically conclude we're going to see some energy price deflation. Not quite sure, we might not be quite sure how much, what the percentage is going to be, but we're definitely going to see some energy price deflation because we've got significant downward price pressures on oil prices. Now, when we look at the refined products from oil, and a good exemplar of this is the reformulated gasoline prices, we see largely the same pattern. Up at the beginning of the month, then down, it's trending back up, and then it reversed. So that reformulated gasoline prices are also significantly below where they opened for the month of November. And so this tells us that we are locking in an even stronger energy price deflation signal. And that's important because remember, headline inflation is supposed to be going up. So one of the key components of headline inflation, energy prices, we already know it's actually coming down. It's going to be negative. It's going to be a reduction from the overall inflation rate. We get even more deflationary signals when we look at retail gasoline prices at the pump. AAA maintains a national database of this, and as we can see, earlier this week, the average gasoline price in the country was about $3.06 a gallon. This is down about 7 cents from where it was a month ago. And so what we're seeing here is that gasoline prices are heading to where they're going to be below $3 a gallon before too long. This has been a persistent level of decline. It's continuing. Sometime in December, unless there's a complete reversal of the trend, sometime in December we're going to see average gasoline prices break below $3 a gallon. Other sources to confirm that these in fact are the pricing signals that we're seeing. We go to the Energy Information Administration, which is part of the data operations of the United States government. And again, we see gasoline prices are coming down. Diesel prices are coming down. They ticked up a little bit last week, but overall they're coming down. Another site for tracking retail gasoline prices is GasBuddy. And for the past month, it's showing gasoline prices coming down. So pretty much across the board, we're seeing data that shows gasoline prices are coming down. Crude oil prices are coming down. Refined products prices, like reformulated gasoline, those are coming down too. And so if all of these prices are coming down, well, that's why we call it energy price deflation. That's what it is when prices are coming down. We know that these prices are coming down for the month of November. So For the purposes of evaluating the consumer price index, yeah, we're looking at energy price deflation. Now that's significant because the other major component of headline inflation outside of the core inflation metric is food prices. Well, if month on month inflation is showing down a little bit, is easing up a little bit for core inflation, and we're looking at energy price deflation for the month, if headline inflation for the month is increasing from where it was last month, that means that we're going to be seeing some significant inflation movements in food prices. So we're probably going to get data that tells us that food prices have increased noticeably. How much? It's difficult to develop a precise estimate for something like that. But in September, food price inflation month on month was coming in at 0.4%. It would not surprise me to see that food price inflation comes in between 0.3 and 0.4% for November. That's kind of what if we're seeing strong deflationary signals for energy prices and moderate inflation increase for headline consumer prices, then that's got to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is going to be food prices. So we're looking at a larger than anticipated increase in food prices. So we're looking at about like I said, between 0.3 and 0.4%. And so that's what's going to be happening with food prices. That's what happens with energy prices, and this is what's going to feed into the headline inflation numbers that we saw earlier. So looking at core inflation, we can break that down further into goods, your physical stuff, all your widgets, your gadgets, your Dumaflachis, all your physical things that get made by somebody. Because these are manufactured items that we're talking about, their raw materials are pretty much all going to be one commodity or another. Your commodities prices are basically your prices for raw materials. This is where you get your copper prices. This is where you get like your steel, your steel rebar, all sorts of other materials. Things that go. These are the inputs that go into actually making something. And so, if commodities prices are down, that means your input prices are down. Your materials costs are headed down, and so that's going to be an indication that material costs are down, manufacturing costs are going to be down, and so that means that's going to be a downward pressure on goods prices. So if we see commodities prices heading down, that's an indication that we're going to be seeing some goods price deflation, in the overall mix of things. And we're seeing the same basic trend as what we saw in energy. That was up at the beginning of the month, down in the middle of the month, trended up, and then reversed. And it reversed so enough to where we're seeing a minor amount of commodity price deflation. And so this is, for the month, we're looking at a deflationary signal for goods prices. So durable goods, non-durable goods, probably not going to be more expensive at the end of the month than they were at the beginning. We are probably looking at at least some goods price deflation. Now, when we look at the Purchasing Manager Index data, and this is a survey that is done, a couple of organizations do it. S&P is one, Institute for Supply Chain Management is the other. And what we're seeing here is ongoing manufacturing decline. Now, the nature of how the Purchasing Manager Index is constructed, any value in the PMI that is above 50 represents expansion. So when it comes in, so when the index comes in at 40, 48, 49, 48, 49, what is happening is this is the manufacturing industries in this country broadly contracting. There's less output, there's less fewer shifts being worked, fewer man hours, fewer factories, fewer everything. That we're seeing an overall contraction in manufacturing in the U.S. economy, and we're seeing this for the fifth month in a row. Not only are we seeing this for the fifth month in a row, but for a substantial portion of 2023, the S&P manufacturing PMI was showing um, uh, contraction uh, pretty much all year. I mean, we're definitely we're in the doldrums here from manufacturing in 2023, and now we're ending up 2024 at the same in the same situation where we're seeing uh, yeah, manufacturing as a whole contract. We're seeing less manufacturing output, and so this is going to be a deflationary signal for goods prices. And we've been seeing goods prices in deflation for several months now. Now, we've been seeing elevated service price inflation, and this is why. Services Purchasing Manager Index from S&P is showing services are really heating up. Again, any value above 50, and that's going to pretty much be everything like this, everything above 50 represents expansion. Output is increasing. Services have been above 50 since almost 2 years now, going back to the beginning of 2023. They only had a minimal period below 50, about like the last 6 months of 2022. So services are doing very, very well, and this is why we are seeing elevated service price inflation, because this means that there's service service outputs are increasing, and if they're increasing in this kind of environment, that means that demand is also increasing, and thus we're pushing up the prices of services, and because we keep doing that, that's what's driving service price inflation. But this is the indication that we're seeing in all this, is that what is happening is that we're doing a lot more with services. We're pushing that a lot more, and that's driving prices up. So where does this leave us overall? How do we get from these various components to an uptick in headline inflation of 2.7%, month-on-month inflation of 0.26%, and core inflation of 0.27%? Well, the answer, of course, is that these amounts are then get blended together. So for the headline rate, when we look at what's been happening with energy prices overall, we can tell, okay, we're looking at some energy price deflation. Food prices are likely to be going up. Goods prices, signs are for deflation, and service prices, they've been in inflation since forever. Then they're going to continue to be in inflation. So all of these elements taken together are how we get how we will wind up with a headline inflation rate of month-on-month 0.26%, and core inflation rate month-on-month 0.27%. Now, this is always the point that tends to get lost in the shuffle with corporate media, because they never really look too much at how we have divergent trends, divergent behaviors within the pantheon of consumer prices. We have some prices that have been in persistent deflation. Energy prices have been coming down for months now. Food prices have been kind of a little bit scattershot. Lately, they've been heating up a little bit. Goods prices, again, we've been seeing a lot of deflation throughout this year. Goods prices have been getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and so that's a long-term trend. Service prices have been getting more and more and more expensive, and so that's another long-term trend. And so what we're seeing is these things diverge, and in some cases diverging in ways that they haven't done historically. And that's definitely one cause for concern. The other aspect is not to read too much into the consumer price inflation number that gets reported every month. That's an amalgamation of these these basic index components, uh, and that means that it's arrived at taking the deflation of energy, the inflation of food, the deflation of goods, the inflation of services, and blending it all together. So, you, if your experience at the checkout counter and at the gas pump doesn't match what is being reported for the CPI number each month, well, that's to be expected. That's normal. We shouldn't, and this is where we don't want to take the reported index number too seriously, because it's kind of papering over what's actually happening farther on down. And corporate media does not do a good job of explaining this, which is, I think one reason why people tend to get a little frustrated with inflation numbers. Like, well, that's not real. Well, that's right, because it's not really breaking it down the way you see prices. Yeah. And the ultimate takeaway, because when we always see this kind of bipolar behavior in prices, yeah, we always want to remember that the that there are many layers within consumer price data, and if we want to understand what's happening with the economy, what's happening with prices in the economy, we have to peel back those layers. And that's what I do every month when the numbers come out. I will peel back the layers, and that's one of the things that I write up and that I talk about. And we have to look at these individual components. We have to look at the individual prices to really understand what's happening with with inflation overall, with consumer prices overall. Looking at just the headline number, looking at even just the core inflation number, is really just kind of oversimplifying it, and it's not communicating as much information as we could be communicating if we take the time to just simply deconstruct it a little bit further. And so, and that's the presentation I have for today. I hope you found this informative. I hope you find this helpful in kind of getting a better sense of what's actually happening with consumer prices as we go into the holiday season. If you found this presentation helpful and you enjoyed it, please share it out with your friends. The more people that this gets spread to, the better. Also, if please consider making either a one-time donation or, uh, or sign up to become a paying subscriber to All Facts Matter. Uh, User support, audience support is what keeps this work going. So whatever people can do is, of course, greatly appreciated. Um, and I appreciate all of my users, appreciate all of my subscribers, including the free ones. That everybody's support is what keeps this work going, and I'm very, very grateful for everybody. Um, and that's what I have for today. And so, thank you for your time, and have a nice day.